What's up, guys? My name is Lowbred, and today I'm going to be recreating the entire 2025 college football season here on College Football 26. Now, as you can see, I can't replicate scores, but I can and did win in and forced win every game that I could. Correct everywhere I checked. It did take a while, so I am going to go week by week just because I felt like I wanted to get the most out of it, and I feel like it would be better just to see how the game goes week by week compared to just jumping straight to the end. I don't think there's any fun in that, and I won't be doing any recruiting or any of the coach upgrades because that's besides the point. But as you can see, like right there, the game in Ireland, it was a one-score game in real life, and it ended up being a one-score game in here as well. So you can see Texas loses to Ohio State there, and now they have fallen to ninth, which was pretty close to what it was in real life. They were like 6 or 7. Anywho, as you can see, I am a Texas fan with that and that. But as we keep advancing here through these early weeks, I do have it sped up a little bit just to get through the weeds, just get straight more to the point. Don't feel like there's much point in me talking for 20 minutes about nothing. But here you go. We keep moving on. I will slow it down at some point just to kind of speak it sometimes clearly so it's not like rushing too much. But I'd say that the game did a pretty accurate job as how the committee and the AP poll really did vote over the year. Now, if you think the AP poll or the committee was wrong with their decisions, now that is something that is questionable repeatedly. But the game, regardless of how you feel, did a good job of replicating that. Now here, Texas will lose to Florida and derail what should have been a college football playoff season in real life. Now, will that happen in the game? We'll find out soon enough. And soon I will be pausing it just to show. See, Texas falls to 23rd here, but in real life, we're unranked. And you can see some of the teams are starting to move up. Notre Dame, after 2 losses, is working their way back up just like they did in real life. You see Oklahoma there. LSU's season's about to be derailed completely to where they fire their coach. And you see Texas beats Oklahoma there and moves up to 15th. But Oklahoma stays in front of Texas just like they did in real life, for the time being at least. And then you're going to have Indiana, Ohio State. Those teams just really stay at the top. Texas moves to 12th here. Now, this game in real life, Texas barely beats Mississippi State, but in the game, not so much. You see, like here, Kentucky, Texas put the whooping on them, but in real life, Texas barely won that game by 3 in overtime. And then you have teams like BYU moving up, and then of course A&M, Ohio State, Indiana, where in real life Indiana would have been ahead of them the whole time. But you can kind of see that the rankings are reflecting somewhat how they were in real life week to week. Texas moves up again to 11th. Arch wins his one and only SEC Player of the Week on here, and now Vanderbilt's up to 16th. When in real life, this game was Vanderbilt at 9 and Texas at, I believe, 17. And you see Texas has jumped Notre Dame. Miami's up there. Georgia Tech's undefeated. BYU. All those schools. And then we see Fernando Mendoza is now in the Heisman. And then Garrett Dustmeyer, which did not happen in real life, despite being projected to go number 1 overall by some people. I find that hard to believe it. He's going to be drafted in the top 3 rounds. Now you can kind of see Utah, Georgia Tech, Virginia, and A&M still holding over Indiana. Texas has moved up into the top 10, and Mendoza's still there. Now, as we move to what should be Georgia week for Texas, sitting at 8th. Yes, now Texas was 10th in real life here, but as you can see, you have Pitt there, Notre Dame, Michigan, Miami down there, but then still Alabama ahead of Georgia, OU, Tech, which in real life was actually pretty high. And obviously they do finish fourth, but here, hasn't happened yet. As we move on, you see Arizona State there at the back end, SMU, Pittsburgh, all those schools. And into the Heisman, still Mendoza. The game loves Zachariah Branch and Barry and Brown. I've plenty of rebuilds I've done. They're always there. Texas loses, only falls to 14, which they fell to, I believe, 17th in real life. As you can see, USC, Michigan, and still all the schools that were already there. But Alabama is sitting there at 16th when in real life they were top 10, I believe, around this time period. Texas moves to 13th after the win, and now they're playing A&M. And then you can see here where everyone is. Notre Dame sitting right there at 10, which they usually were. BYU 11 and Miami 12, Texas 13, Vanderbilt 15, Utah. I mean, it's pretty accurate to how it was in real life. Then you see Tulane, and I believe that was JMU there, just like how it was in real life. They crept up towards the end, but Texas beats A&M here and then jumps all the way up to 10th. And then you can see UNLV, which did have a good season. That was my prediction for the college football playoff for the G5. Little did I know 2 would get in. North Texas, JMU, Tulane sitting there. But you can kind of see Virginia sitting at 17. And then BYU, Notre Dame, Miami, Alabama, Vanderbilt, Utah. All sitting right where about they did finish more or less as in the college football playoff rankings. And then you have, for some reason, Indiana sitting at 4, even though they beat Oregon in real life. And obviously, like you see, they beat them in the game. And then, so here's the complicated part. Because the game doesn't take into account like the tiebreakers, usually if there's no head-to-head direct, the game just puts the team with the alphabetical order in for the conference championship. So A&M will make it over Alabama, even though that's not how it worked. See, they're just looking at 10-2 versus 11-1, even though Alabama obviously made it in real life. And then you still have JMU there, Virginia, and I don't believe the game gets this right either. I think it puts in SMU, even though Duke did go on to win the ACC in real life. And then it moves on to North Texas and Tulane, which was correct. BYU, Texas Tech, Indiana, Ohio State. And then you see there, kind of going through that all quick. Here, I put in New Mexico and Boise State, which in real life, it really should have been, but a computer picked it for the Mountain West, so that's regardless of the fact. But you can see there, Stan jumped into the race as well. And then all I had there was Army-Navy, and that game hasn't happened yet, so I didn't know what to exactly do, so I kind of let it just ride out on its own. And then you see Conference Championship Week here. I'm just going to go in and force win the correct teams, or if the wrong teams are there, just the people that replaced them, because it didn't really make too much of a difference anyway. See, like Missouri State, and then see New Mexico got in, and then A&M, like I said, and then JMU. Now, I was kind of wondering how the polls would affect A&M there, but as you can see, Zachariah Branch wins the Heisman, but it didn't affect them at all. They didn't move at all, which was good. It's kind of like how in real life Alabama didn't move at all and stayed at 9. And then here you have it. Let me move that down a little bit. There you go. Or, you know what? Let me move it over here. There you are. So there you can see that this is what the game gave me for the college football playoff. And I'd say it did a pretty good job. It has Georgia at 1, which obviously they were not 1. They were 3. And then you have Ohio State and Indiana and Oregon, which in real life is just a flip-flop between Tech and Oregon. And then you can see JMU and Tulane, and even gave us the rematch of Ole Miss, and then Oklahoma got in, and then there's the two that really could be controversial in Texas getting in and Notre Dame. Now, in real life, obviously, Miami got in and Alabama, but here in the game, it did the right thing, no bias, and put in Texas. Now, Miami should have been in over Notre Dame in real life, and in the game, it did correct that. So we got to see what probably this is a mix of both, good and bad. If you can look at the top 25 here and see, the game did a great job. I think it has Texas, Notre Dame, BYU, Miami, Alabama, Vanderbilt, Utah, USC, and Michigan, all about in their correct spots. Now, obviously, in real life, Alabama was not hurt by the fact that they got absolutely dog walked by Georgia in the SEC championship, and in the game, they didn't make it. But what should have happened in real life happened in the game regardless. Texas did have the harder strength of schedule, but you don't lose to Florida, so can't really complain too much. And then just going over some of the awards here, like I'm pretty sure Jacob Rodriguez won that award in real life, or this one, and then I don't know, Jeremiah Love will win that one for sure. And then like some of these, obviously, like that's going to go to Cassius Howell or David Bailey. Obviously, I don't know who's going to win all these awards because it hasn't happened in real life yet, but this is what the game is predicting. I have no idea who will win Freshman of the Year in real life. And then we'll move on. I just wanted to see how the playoffs would play out. And then here you go. You have Texas losing to Texas A&M in the first round. I'll stop there. You can see JMU upsets Texas Tech to set up what is the real life matchup of Oregon and James Madison. And then you can look at all the other scores there. I just thought that was pretty funny that JMU ends up winning to set up the real life game in the second round on here. And then obviously Ole Miss dog walks Tulane just like they did in real life. And then we move on to next week. And just like in real life, Oregon is going to destroy James Madison, and they did in the game here. As you can see, Ole Miss upsets Ohio State, and then Oklahoma defeats Indiana by 1 point to advance to the semifinal. And then Georgia defeats Texas A&M. And then as we move on to the last week, to the National Championship week, we have Ole Miss versus Georgia, which could definitely happen in the quarterfinal. Can't happen in real life in the national championship, but we're going to see what happens here. And your national champions are the Georgia Tech Bulldogs. The Georgia Bulldogs. And they pretty much dominated the game. The score doesn't dictate what really happened, I guess, but at least from stats-wise, they did. And then, look at one last thing, and there you have it. Georgia wins the national championship in this replication of the 2025 college football season. And I'd like to thank you all for watching. And then if you'd like more, like, subscribe, share this video. Greatly appreciate it. And hook 'em.